Hello. It is M.E.C. and you're listening to the Well of Being podcast. Welcome. As I record this, it's very close to Valentine's Day, and it got me thinking a lot about my relationship with self-love and self-care and the way that I show myself that love. Or honestly, don't show myself that love because I tend to work myself into the ground pretty frequently, unfortunately. And that begs the question, why is self-care so hard? It is so difficult to love yourself through practices that are sustainable on a regular basis. I just don't get it. And I think part of it has to do with the way that we define self-care, like the notion of self-care. I actually am going to go on Pinterest right now, and I'm going to look up the word self-care, and I want to tell you what I see. Okay, so I've now looked up self-care on Pinterest, and I'm seeing lots of candles and skincare items. I'm seeing some generic yoga poses. We love that. I see a journal that's being written in outside, some fancy glasses of spa water, some avocado toast, some quotes, and a lot of face masks. I'm seeing a lot of face masks here. More spa water. Okay, so we have a very clear notion, apparently, of what self-care should look like, and it has a lot to do with skincare and spa water, apparently, and potentially baths. I'm seeing lots of baths as well. This actually reinforces my point. None of these things necessarily are really about caring for yourself. They're about caring for your vessel, which is definitely part of yourself. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm trying to say is there's different ways that you can care for yourself. And when we make it only about the vessel that we're in, rather than about holistically who we are and the things that we need, aka caring for oneself, it's a different definition of self-care. If I were to think about taking care of somebody else, I wouldn't just consider putting face masks on them and putting them in a bath and then giving them fancy water. I would think about, how are their emotional needs being met? Are they moving enough? Are they having a good time while they're existing in the space that we call life? That got kind of deep. It didn't need to be like that. That's fine. But it goes beyond just the external. And part of it goes into caring for, what's it within, and I think that's a really big point of it. And so when we have self-care notions that are purely external, that's something we should think about. It makes it like as if I'm caring for myself as long as I'm doing my skincare routine. Now, as somebody who doesn't necessarily do my skincare routine as frequently as I should, hey, yeah, I probably could get better at that aspect of self-care. Won't even say that that's wrong. But caring for yourself involves giving yourself the things that you need and respecting yourself, and also sometimes self-discipline, and then also caring for your vessel, right? So let's start there. And it brings me to point number 1, the fact that self-care is seen as a response to stress and not a daily practice. How frequently do you have like a really stressful week at school or work, and you have a lot of pent-up emotions, and you have not really gotten to let your mind rest? And so you completely swing in the opposite direction and say, I'm not doing anything this weekend. I'm relaxing. I will let myself sit on the couch and do nothing all weekend. And I'm caring for myself. That is what we tell ourselves, right? And this intense stress makes us feel the need to have more fun or more relaxation, often avoid our responsibilities, and procrastinate, my favorite thing, except that also makes you feel guilty, won't even lie, right? And we engage in these quick stress relief actions, but they're not long-term stress relief actions. What do I mean? Binging shows, nothing wrong with that, but that is also something that is a very quick stress relief action. When you binge your show this weekend, when you show up at work on Monday, it's probably not going to reduce your stress overall. You had a good time binging it over the weekend, But is that stress relief going to go into the week? Probably not. Another example of this is deciding that you're going to avoid all of your work and procrastinate. I can assure you that when you actually have to go and do that work, it will not feel like stress relief anymore. It'll actually feel like a stressor. Another example of this is like the concept you get home from wherever you've been all day and you're like, I am too tired to cook. I think I'll order out. I'm going to treat myself. That's fine. You do it once, you do it twice, then suddenly you have no groceries, your fridge is full of leftovers, and your wallet is hurting. And then you go into the next day, and is that stress relief still there? No, it is gone. It was a stress reliever in the moment, and then now it's gone. None of these things are bad. Don't even get me wrong, they're not. They are temporary stress relievers. They are quick stress relief. However, it is important to note the fact that they do not keep you de-stressed for long. They really don't. And I think we're really obsessed with this concept of using self-care, or what we define as self-care, and these quick fixes as a response to stress, rather than allowing our stress levels to be at a manageable level over time. And making sure that if we do have stress, that we are tempering it with long-term solutions rather than quick short-term solutions all the time. Now, let's be completely honest. We cannot necessarily get rid of stress in our day. We really can't, and sometimes you're really not in control of that. If you're a person who is responsible for caring for someone else, maybe you're a parent, maybe you care for a guardian of yours who is getting older or who is disabled, or maybe you just have a habit of caring for lots of other people. You could be like me and be a medical student and that's your job. If you do that, right, you're going to be stressed. Okay, there's not really a way around that. If you're a student and you care about your grades and you're having a lot of work, you're going to be stressed. If you have a job and someone's telling you what to do, you're going to be stressed. I'm just going to be honest with you. And in addition to not being able to avoid it, some of us really have to be in extremely stressful situations that we cannot control because that's our survival, right? If you need to pay your bills and you have to take on a stressful position that you don't like and you hate being there, yeah, you can't really temper that stress because you're doing that for survival, and I acknowledge that. So what is the solution here? The solution to me lies in the way that we mix our not so fun things we have to do, our temporary stress relievers, and then our long-term stress relievers. And I'm going to explain that entire process as we get to the final point in this. But it really revolves around having a mix of temporary stress relief, debriefing about what's going on during your day. So you're de-stressing in a way that is releasing all the pent-up stuff that's happening throughout the day. And then finally, having fulfilling hobbies, like things that just sustain you. I think it's really great to have temporary stress relief. I love me a K-drama marathon, don't even get me wrong. However, something that really sustains me is doing this, making content that I really love, being creative, feeling like I'm making a difference and working on my personal goals really helps you to continue persevering. And even when you're stressed out, you're proud of the things that you're doing. And I think that that is long-term stress relief. You feel what I'm saying? That brings me to point number 2. There's a strong learned narrative of guilt that we associate with the concept of taking care of ourselves. I'm gonna let that sit. We have guilt at setting boundaries that involve taking care of ourselves. And I'm so bad at this. Okay, even when I'm sick and I need to call out sick for school or for work, I feel bad. Why do I feel bad taking time off because I'm ill? I can't be there, I can't do my best, I feel like garbage, and I deserve to be able to sit in my house and rest and heal and get better so I can go back to doing the stuff that I like to do. And yet I'm worried about the fact that I'm not going to be there. I'm worried about what people will think if I don't show up. How does this affect the way that I'm perceived, or does this affect my grades, or does this affect my position at work? I worry about all of these things rather than taking the time that I need and that I deserve to stay at home and feel like crap on my couch while I drink soup and watch anime. Like, why is that a sin in my mind? It feels so associated with guilt, and I think we do this to ourselves all the time, where, you have like some nice time to yourself, or even often when you find yourself without anything to do and you're looking around being like, why don't I have something to do? I should be doing something right now. And you have this like feeling that you should be doing something else when there's nothing else to do. We feel like we cannot not be doing something. Another example of this is saying no to tasks. We're so bad at this. A lot of us are. Whether it's something at work where someone says, hey, can you take on this extra thing that I have to do, and you can't handle it, or you really don't want to do it, or frankly, your plate is really full and you have no capacity to take on this extra thing, and yet a lot of us automatically say, yeah, I can do it, I'll figure it out, and then end up stressing ourselves out because we've taken on too much work. We are really bad at saying no. Even in friendships, favors will be asked of us. Maybe they make you uncomfortable. Maybe they go against your values. Or maybe you simply are just really emotionally exhausted and do not have the capacity to do them. Honestly, you could also just not want to do it. That's a valid reason to not do a favor. You can say no because you just don't want to. But we don't feel like that's an option because we're worried about the quality of our friendships and if someone will think that we're not actually invested in the friendship and whether people will be upset with us for saying no and for forcing that boundary. And so we just decide that our discomfort is less important and then we take it on. And that's not sustainable. But we make it a sustainable practice. And when I say sustainable, I mean like you continue to do it and you somehow manage to do it. But it's not pleasant and it's not enjoyable and it's definitely not self-care or self-love. And I think a lot of us also, when we actually do have time off, I've mentioned this before, if we have time off and we're having fun and we're out with friends, and you find yourself thinking about the stuff that you have to do tomorrow, or you find yourself thinking, oh, I should actually be working on this or taking care of this person, or I should be checking in here, and you're not in the moment when you're having fun and you should be relaxing. Instead, you keep moving to thoughts of things that you need to do or that you should have done or things that might happen. The fact that we can't be in the moment and we feel guilty for enjoying ourselves or trying to enjoy ourselves, it's just this really strong learned narrative of guilt. And I think it often stems from when individuals, when we're kids, try to impart in us the value of responsibility. We're taught that responsibility is an extremely important value, and that responsibility means doing things that we're supposed to do. And many of us take this and say, I'm supposed to do everything, because people reward us for being high achieving, for accomplishing a lot of things. People tell us, oh my goodness, you're such a good friend, you're always there for me. And therefore, I have decided that that is my responsibility to be there for you always, even when I have nothing left to give. Another example is, you're always so great at work, you're always going above and beyond what I ask you to do, and therefore it is now my responsibility to go above and beyond every time, even when I'm exhausted. Or when someone tells you, you're really thoughtful, you're always thinking of things before I think of them. And then when we're by ourselves and we're actually trying to relax, we're trying to think of things that we can do to please other people or things that we should be doing the next step ahead. We can't be comfortable in the place that we're at because we have been rewarded or praised for thinking ahead and worrying about the future and planning for contingencies. I'm not saying that this feedback, people complimenting you for going above and beyond, being a great friend and thinking ahead, are bad things. But I think sometimes we're so obsessed and drawn to the positive feedback that we misdirect what we're actually getting that feedback for. You don't have to go above and beyond every time. That's something I actually have to tell myself very frequently, because you become used to associating high achievement or being a good friend or thinking above and beyond, whatever the positive feedback is, with your identity. And if you can't do it all the time, then who are you really? And so then we get stuck in this feeling of guilt, or we don't feel like ourselves if we can't constantly push ourselves and be there for other people and please other people and frankly do everything on our to-do list. And it feels bad. And there's also a fun extra little element of guilt at not taking care of ourselves when we see other people doing it. And a good example of this is if you see a coworker eating like a healthy lunch and you look down at your lunch and it doesn't look nearly as healthy as theirs, and you start to compare yourself because you think, oh, I should be eating better. And then there's your friend, we all have one, who runs every day, super early in the morning, or whether it's in the evening, whatever, they run every day or something like that. And then every time they mention it, you think, oh, I'm so lazy, I could never do that. As opposed to thinking, wow, this individual packs some healthy lunches and I'm enjoying my lunch right now. Or let's be honest, maybe your lunch is actually not that nice. That person can have a healthy lunch and you can have a lunch that doesn't taste so great and it doesn't reflect on you. It's just a lunch. In a similar capacity, a person can really enjoy running and you don't have to enjoy running and you don't have to run every day or exercise every day to be taking care of your body. There's this obsession with comparison that also works its way into this self-care and self-love narrative. And if we're not caring for ourselves the way that other people are, we feel less than. And it really just builds itself into this narrative that we've been taught, as I mentioned before, that self-care and self-love should make us feel guilty because maybe it's selfish, or maybe we're not trying hard enough, or maybe we're just not meeting the expectations we feel like we're supposed to meet. And that is some heavy tea, I'm gonna tell you right now. I think I'm gonna make myself tea right now, actually, not even gonna lie. I am going to transition to key point number 3. Treating yourself is not necessarily taking care of yourself. Yeah, we're not going to like this one, I can already tell. We are comfortable with self-care that's in the form of self-indulgence, but not self-discipline. Okay, I keep thinking of that episode of Parks and Rec when it's like, treat yourself, massages, treat yourself, fine leather goods. I actually think that that's really funny, and every time that comes up in my feed, I watch it like 3 times. It's a great thing, but it also really kind of points us to the fact that we feel compelled to engage in self-care that is aesthetically pleasing rather than things that are serving the needs that we have. Typically, what I mean is emotional needs, and they tend to be more superficial. So things like face masks and shopping sprees and expensive dinners, these are not necessarily things that we need. Maybe you are really exhausted every day and you have a job that demands a lot of your emotional attention. What you probably need is daily debriefing to really get out the emotions that you don't get a chance to express when you're at work and you're really just don't have the time to process what's been going on. Maybe you've been having a lot of really difficult stuff come up from your past, and what you really need to see is a therapist, but instead you really want to avoid it and just go on shopping sprees. I also just want to point out the fact that you can go on shopping sprees and see a therapist. These 2 things can exist. That's not my point, but it just know it exists. And often, and this happens to me because when I was in college, I had a shopping addiction. I was spending ridiculous amounts of money on stuff because I was stressed out, and I would use that as stress relief, and I did not have the money to be doing this. I remember one time I had like $200 left in my bank account after spending money on stupid things and clothes that I did not even wear which makes me feel horrible because now like half of my closet is thrifted and I really try to wear everything. But like at the time, that was the only way I knew how. It was really the only way I knew how to really de-stress. When I would get a package in the mail that I ordered, it was like Christmas. And so I just kept chasing that feeling. But the moment you open the box and you try it on, the magic is gone, and then you're not really as interested anymore. And then you do it again because you're chasing that feeling. And so what I needed, what would have been caring for myself at that time, would have been setting rules for myself financially. Because I remember opening up my like bank app and seeing that I had $200, only $200, and the amount of stress that imparted on me, I mean, far outweighed any of the temporary stress relief that shopping frequently gave me. I mean, I'm thinking about, will I have enough money to cover the expenses of this month? Would I have to tell my parents that I'm really not doing well at budgeting and that I'm being irresponsible? Will that make them feel like they can't trust me and therefore limit my financial support in the future? How can I return all these clothes? Am I going to have to print out labels? How am I going to pay for the printing for the labels? Because you know how schools like to make you pay for printing. I'm thinking about all of these extra contingencies, right? I'm getting really specific. And all of that stress came from the fact that I was using a technique, if you will, that was supposed to be de-stressing me, but ultimately ended up in me being more stressed out. So this concept of self-indulgence is not evil, it's not bad, but it has to be done for the right reasons. Maybe you're physically very exhausted and your shoulders are hurting and your nails are raggedy and you really could just use a nice spa day because that's what you need at that time. Then go and have the spa day. I guess what I'm saying with this is don't try to accidentally misdirect your needs into something that is a superficial practice and not really addressing what you really need at that moment. And this is something I'm still learning, in particular with my phone and setting boundaries with my phone. The speed at which I disable any sort of time limits that are on Instagram or Pinterest or Pokemon Go is ridiculous. I can do it without looking. I just automatically, it says, your time's up for today on this app. And I immediately disable it. I don't even think about it. I don't even look at the labels. I just automatically disable it for the day. And those are limits that I tried to set for myself because I knew it was on my phone too much. And so something I really need to do is kind of take more intentional steps to think, why am I opening this app? Because that's something I need. I'm finding myself becoming way too obsessed with my phone and heavily reliant on it to the point where if it's not on me, I get kind of anxious. And so that's something that I'm working on right now, and that's a really good example of maybe your phone's a tool and you utilize it for, stress relief in other ways, but indulging myself, that, kind of dopamine hit that I get from opening an app and being like, oh, this is stress relief, this self-indulgence is actually causing me more stress later because I'm realizing that it's the root of a lot of issues that I'm having. So that's just one example from my personal life there. And finally, my last point is going to get into what are practical ways that we can address this issue of self-care and actually show ourselves some love and help ourselves in this need to balance self-indulgence and self-discipline in the realm of self-care. It's hard for us to do this because we're swinging between the two, and it's extremely disorienting because self-indulgence often ends up in eventual stress, and self-discipline feels like a punishment. I won't even lie. It does. And so what's the solution? This is the solution I've been working on. There's 3 types of activities that I'm going to group things in. 1 is stressful activities. 2 are quick stress relieving activities. and 3 are fulfilling or long-term stress relief activities. Now, let's be honest, we can't get rid of the stressful tasks. We have to do the dishes in the sink. We have to finish our homework. We have to make sure that we're prepared on Sunday for the rest of the week. There are things that we kind of can't not do. They have to be done, and they're stressful, and we don't want to do them. And then for our quick stress relievers, this is the Netflix. This is the fancy face mask, treat yourself type section. This is going to your favorite restaurant and ordering out because you're really tired that day. These are things that provide us with quick, small amounts of stress relief. And then we have our long-term fulfilling stress relievers. These are things that make us feel like we have a reason outside of our job and school and work and obligations. We have a reason to be here. This is something that is fulfilling to us. For me, it is this podcast, to be honest with you, and making content and talking about mental health. I find that incredibly fulfilling. I feel like that's part of the reason why I've been placed on this earth, right? We want to find things that make us feel like we have a purpose and that they just make us feel great. And they can be small, like maybe you weren't put on this earth to crochet something, but it really does make you feel whole because when you finish a project, you feel fulfilled. That's what it means. And so it can be creative things, it can be service, it can be just fostering relationships with people, whatever it is. You have these long-term stress relief activities that are fulfilling. That's the key point. So the way that I like to do it is if I have a stressful task, I'm going to pair that stressful task with a quick stress reliever. So if I have to do a ton of dishes and clean my entire kitchen and sweep the floor and do all this cleaning stuff that I don't want to do, I'm going to pair it with watching Pokemon on YouTube, which is my guilty pleasure. And so I have 30 minutes of this activity that I don't want to do, and I have 20 minutes of this activity that I find stress relieving in a quick, short-term sense. So I'm rewarding myself for tackling this stressful activity. A very important point about this is that when it comes to stressful activities or things that we don't want to do, the concept of them is actually more displeasing to us than actually doing it. I find this every single time. Anytime I've ever questioned my ability to complete a task in front of me, or it seems extremely daunting, or it sounds like it's gonna suck, it is often the concept of it and thinking and worrying about how much it's going to suck that feels worse than actually completing the task. It's happened to me time and time again. You have this daunting homework assignment or essay that you do not want to write, and you're thinking about it all the time, and you're like avoiding it, and it's in the back of your mind, oh, I gotta write this like 12-page paper, it's gonna suck so bad. And then you go and start writing, and you're focused for a little bit, and you finish 4 pages, and you're like, yeah, that actually wasn't that bad. And then you do the next 4 pages, and then you're like, oh, I only have 4 more pages left. And then it's over, and then it's gone. And you don't have to necessarily do that exact same task again. And you found that it actually wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. This is a really key part of this. Anytime I feel myself dreading something or getting anxious about the concept of accomplishing a task, I think there are people before me who have done this task and done it well, and I can do it too. One. And then the second thing is that I know I don't want to do this, but this is not going to be as bad as I think it's going to be. And when I approach these things from that perspective, and I know that at the end of it, I'm going to get a reward that is tailored to myself, that I find temporary stress relief, that I find temporarily gives me some stress relief, that helps me to tackle these things and feel less stressed out about the entire process. In addition, these are daily activities. These are things you have to do all the time throughout your week. I make sure that at least once a week I have time that is set aside and is protected for a fulfilling activity of mine. So like right now I'm sitting here and I'm recording at like 7 p.m. my time. This is my time to bond with you and create this content that I think is important, and I have this time protected despite the fact that I'm super busy and I work 11 hours a day at the hospital and blah blah blah. This is protected time for me because I find it fulfilling and I think it's really important, and I look forward to seeing how the podcast does, and I really like seeing people's comments on it, and I feel fulfilled when I have published something, and that's important to me. And so that is something I think is really helpful. So we're taking away this scary dreadfulness from these stressful tasks we don't want to do. We're sprinkling in these quick stress relievers throughout the week, and then we have at least one, but you could add more if you really want. At least one time throughout the week where you're doing something that you find really fulfilling. And I think this is a very sustainable and realistic and approachable way to really love yourself through caring for yourself throughout the week. And I think if I could add on any other practice to that trio, it would probably be debriefing. Whether that's journaling, whether that's through therapy, whether that's with your friends, or just kind of getting it all out. I think that that's incredibly important because many of us do just not take the time to debrief from stressful things, unfair things, things we just didn't like, or then positive things that were great, small things we didn't even think about that were really good that happened to us that we didn't even realize because we didn't take the time to reflect on them. I think debriefing from the week is also very important. It would be lovely to do that every day, and that's something that I'm trying to learn how to do, but on a realistic basis, some of us are just really tired when we roll up into bed, and I'm one of those people, so I'm trying to do it every week. And that is my new philosophy that I'm trying to live by. And I'll be honest with you, this year in medical school is supposed to be one of the most difficult, most sucky, no time for things you like years. And I'm somehow managing to make it a really good experience. And I just feel like a lot of it is attributed to this new mindset shift that is, this is really not as bad as I think it's going to be. And I have these lovely things throughout the week to look forward to, and I have this one fulfilling thing that I do and I value and I carve out time to do every week, and I'm going to debrief to see how I'm doing. And let me tell you, my mood has been so much better. And this is coming from somebody who had a pretty nasty depression episode in October of last year and was not feeling good in December of last year either. So hopefully this is helpful. And I just love being in this space. So thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoy this podcast, it'd be really helpful if you could go and leave a review about what you think about it, what you'd like to see. I always like to make content that is helpful for people and not just me talking to the void, but also something that's really helpful for you as well. Thank you so much. I hope you have a lovely rest of whatever time of day it is. I will see you next week.